So, today our special guest is the main character of the story, The Scarlet Letter, written by Nathaniel Hawthorne, wearer of the Scarlet Letter, and has committed the sin of adultery against her husband and has a daughter named Pearl, all the way from the 17th century from Boston. Please welcome Hester Prynne. Hester was a very lucky woman because instead of having a punishment of death, she just had to wear the Scarlet A on all of her clothing. So, Hester, where was your husband when this whole mess was happening?
Well, you see, Ellen, my husband was held captive by Native Americans, and then a couple years later he came back to Boston pretending to be a doctor named Roger Chillingworth.
Ah, I see. And how is your beautiful daughter Pearl? Let's pull up a picture of her now. Hester, tell us a little bit about Pearl.
Pearl is a mischievous and sometimes moody that is now 4 years old. I love her so much, but I've been a little worried about her because she's getting into fights with cruel kids and threw mud at them and everything.
Tell us about Dimmesdale, Hester.
Dimmesdale is a minister who has sermons that are just masterpieces. He definitely has a secret from everyone that has been taunting him.
Oh, I see. And Hester, when you got out of prison, how did you support yourself during these times?
I made clothing and I did a lot of embroidery. I mainly made clothing for the governor.
You must have been pretty amazing at embroidering clothing. During this time, you were hearing rumors that Pearl was going to be taken away from you. How did you end up keeping her?
I wanted to find out if the rumors were true, so I went to the governor and I told Bellingham, Wilson, Chillingworth, and Dimmesdale that I needed to keep Pearl, and I could teach her very good lessons in life, but they did not agree.
How did you end up keeping her then?
I begged Dimmesdale to speak and stick up for me, and luckily he did, and it worked. I could keep Pearl under 3 conditions. There would be no more scandals, I must teach her religion, and she must go to school.
You must have been so excited and thankful. After you were definitely able to keep Pearl, what was the next big drama that happened?
Well, my husband was still pretending to be Roger Chillingworth and went into the role of a doctor. Of course, Dimmesdale got very ill and didn't want to marry, so Chillingworth had to live with him to help him.
How did the townspeople feel about that?
The townspeople were so grateful that he came just at the right time to help Dimmesdale. But then things started changing. Rumors were spreading about the real truth about my husband, and the townspeople were becoming suspicious.
Wasn't he trying to get secrets out of Dimmesdale? Luckily, Dimmesdale said nothing, right?
Yes. Roger was always having conversations with him about confession and redemption, and tells Dimmesdale that it is part of his physical health that he should confess his secrets.
And did Dimmesdale agree to it?
No. He said that they are only a concern to God. Apologies were said, but Roger was still suspicious of Dimmesdale.
Did Roger ever do anything crazy or weird to Dimmesdale?
Well, a few days later, Roger creeped up on Dimmesdale when he was sleeping. It was crazy. Apparently he found something on his chest that he was extremely excited to find, but no one knows what he found.
What happened to their friendship after this?
Roger continued playing mind games with Dimmesdale. Dimmesdale hated and didn't trust him anymore and continues to suffer, which makes his sermons very powerful and on the topic of sin.
Did things ever get more out of hand after this?
Dimmesdale started seeing visions of Hester and me and was becoming delusional. He started hurting himself physically. He was thinking about holding a visual on the scaffold where I once stood.
He was so crazy for doing that.
I know. He looked like an insane man up there. His pain made him scream and he kept laughing at nothing while he was upon the scaffold. But he asked me and Pearl to come up, and I did so because he's always been there for me.
I can't believe when you were standing up there that there was a huge red A lit up in the sky. That is literally crazy.
Yes, it was crazy. People believed it was an angel that had to do with the passing of Governor Winthron.
Did this uproar affect Dimmesdale at all?
Well, he gave a very powerful sermon the next day, and the church sexton found a black glove in the church. But to end the suspicion, he changed the subject and said it was the A in the sky was a giant meteor.
Wow, all this sounds crazy. This whole scandal must have been crazy to go through. Well, Hester, it's been a lovely time. Thank you so much for being here with us today and for coming out.
Thank you for having me.